Hey everybody, my name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Allen Film. I'm so happy that we are screening Milkwater. Milkwater was one of my absolute favorites of this year. So thanks for joining us. I'm very, very excited that we have some special guests tonight. We have the director of the film, Morgan Ingari. We have the wonderful Molly Bernard, who plays Milo. And then we have Patrick Breen, who plays Roger. So please say hello to everybody.
Hey!
Hello.
Happy to be here.
Morgan, I just want to start by asking you, how did this come up? When did you come up with the idea for this film?
This is actually the first feature I wrote, but it was very different at the time. It was in college, and it was about a woman who signs up to be a surrogate for a young couple who then end up dying, and she has to decide what to do. And I put it to the side and came back to it years later. And when I came back to it, I started doing research on surrogacy and realized that there are very ironclad contracts in place, so it would never really be up to the surrogate. And I was like, I don't really want my first feature to be a legal drama, but at that point, having lived as a queer person for quite a few years, yeah, I had really started to grapple with the reality that if you're gonna have children in a queer relationship, there's always going to be at least one more person involved than the couple. And that was very compelling to me. And I thought that it's a really beautiful thing, but it's also a very complicated thing. And so then I started to kind of reframe the idea of this surrogacy in that capacity, and thinking about how two people could end up in that situation who weren't already good friends, but not through an agency, because I kind of had to get around the contract part of it.
So what was directing like for your first time?
Oh man, I mean, it was awesome. I miss being on set so deeply. There's the directing actors part of it, which is really incredible. And truly, it's not just lip service. Directing actors like Patrick and Molly, who have their own thoughts and experiences to bring to a role, is it's just so much more exciting to get to have people who have internalized a role and come up with it's just so much more interesting when good actors bring their own selves to something. So that was incredible, and I love working with a crew as well.
I was watching this film, and literally everybody on our screening committee loved this. I was watching this, and I thought, I don't know where this film's going. And I love when that happens. I truly adore when that happens. But I wanted to talk about Milo and Roger, because, I mean, in a sense, their relationship is the core of the film. Can Patrick and Molly, can you talk a little bit about what these characters bring to each other and how meeting each other sort of changes their life?
You want to go, Mal?
Sure. I think it's a seismic meeting. Mm-hmm. I mean, just side note, I think it's related to my answer. I completely agree with you. I also didn't know where the film was going to go, and I think that's terribly exciting. And I think that informs the relationship of Milo and Roger. Especially, there are moments I remember in filming and in reading the script, where it almost could go romantic between Roger and Milo, and it almost is. I mean, it's deeply, deeply intimate. And I think they come into each other's, life, and Milo is a tornado who has this beautiful kind of rainbow, Lucky Charms kind of pot of gold at the end of the tunnel for Roger. And it really is all worth it. But it's, you enter any relationship and you can get broken, you can get busted in any intimate relationship, friendship, surrogate, lover. It can all be beautiful or really painful.
And I would say, just to add to that, is Roger had given up at the point that he meets Milo. Mm-hmm. And so she sort of reawakens this dream of fatherhood for him. And then once that happens, he's sort of unmoored. He thinks, well, what? There's no money involved. There's no contract. No, let's, but he kind of sort of goes along with it in her tornado way. until he starts being practical and goes, well, no, I think what we need is this, and then maybe there should be boundaries, and then he starts to be kind of more adult about it as it progresses. But at first, I think it's a romance, between these two characters.
And structurally, I remember saying to Morgan, oh, hello. I remember saying to Morgan, a dog came up to visit me, that the structure almost reminded me of a rom-com.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's intentional because it kind of flips that notion on its head, namely because the queer characters are not exploited or like fetishized. It's like it just is, and I don't know.
Are there any straight people in it? I mean, it's like
just Milo. I mean,
just me.
Oh, right, that's right.
That's
and so it's like she's the minority, in the film.
Yeah,
she's the only straight.
So it's always the gay characters that are the jokes or the trouble or the addicts, and here she's the trouble.
Absolutely,
Yes.
she's the addict.
Uh-huh.
Molly and Patrick, did you two know each other before this?
No.
No.
I mean, there's just a chemistry between you that is really. I mean, what do you attribute that to?
I mean, I don't know how Morgan did it because we didn't meet before we were cast, and it was just this. I think a lot of what you're seeing is because we had such a truncated time to shoot, literally just temporally, that we were like meeting and kind of falling in love like while we were shooting the film. We just were getting to know each other while we shot.
I'm sure it's like how a porno is made, where people just sort of show up on the set and then they start really, really intimate immediately, and
I did that too.
Yeah, and so no, it's just I think sometimes you're fortunate, where the director, she just goes, oh, would you do this and would you do this, and let's I hope it works. I hope they like each other. I hope they can act. I hope they take direction. And Morgan just had really, really good instincts and taste.
Well, Molly was the first person we cast, and from there I was like, it's going to be so important that whoever plays Roger fits with that Milo. And I felt like as soon as we thought about Patrick, I was like, I feel like their senses of humor mesh really well. I feel like their mannerisms, the way that they speak, like I just felt like the two of them, I could picture Molly and Patrick meeting at a bar and becoming friends with each other. Mm. And it was really important to me that like Roger really needed to strike that balance between not being totally steamrolled by Milo, but also not in any way seeming predatory towards her. And I felt like Patrick was the best compliment to that. And he really was.
Thanks. Morgan, there is such a level of complexity to all these characters. Can you talk about giving all these characters such layers?
Sure. I mean, I think to me, representation in its, in how I want to be a director who is dedicated to representation is in having queer characters that are not tropes and are flawed people, and they're good people, but they're people that make mistakes because queer people are just people. Yeah. And so that was really important to me. And I also, I love writing arguments. Like I will often in a script start from I know what the big argument is going to be, and I'll write that, and then I'll kind of work back to get there. And I think the key to a really good argument is that both people should legitimately have a point. It's not an interesting argument to watch if one person is just right and the other person is just wrong. And I think that if you start there, at least for me, starting there and giving both people a point of view that in their world is valid and they're not the right one and they're not the wrong one, develops complexity, I think, because that's how people are, right? No one goes into an argument thinking that they're just completely in the wrong, and most people aren't completely in the wrong.
This is a question for all three of you. There's a point in the film where it sort of seems like maybe Milo is crossing a boundary or going to. Would you sort of talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, Molly, you want to take that?
Sure. I mean, I can begin. Yeah, she is, and she's boundaryless.
Great, a cat moving across the screen like that.
I mean, she's boundaryless, and a lot of the film is about everyone else's navigating Milo's boundarylessness. And yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, to Milo, like, a boundary is someone saying that, like, they don't want her, or like they don't want to be as close to her as she wants to be with them. Like, I don't think Milo thinks boundaries are in any way a good thing. And so it's almost like, to Milo, boundaries exist to be crossed, because if she can cross a boundary and someone is still there in her life, then that's some kind of like litmus test of like, well, they love me enough that like I crossed the boundary and they're still here.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember us talking on set too about like, I think we did emotional currency. And there's this like exchange of what kind of Milo values the most is emotional exchanges.
Yeah, like, I tell you a secret, you tell me a secret.
Right. And I don't, so for me, just to answer your question, for me, there's a lot of moments where Milo is either crossing a boundary or almost crossing a boundary. And just to admit, I don't actually know what specific moment you're talking about, because I think so much for me of playing that role was like, well, I'm going to cross this one now. Anyway, yeah. So I
think Roger's got to like it's so delicate because she's agreed to carry his child, you know, and he doesn't want to piss her off. He doesn't, but then there is a point where he goes like, is she crazy? Have I made a mistake? You know? And that's when he has to sort of be more legal, you know, and get the things signed, or it's over, or any, you know, and I think that's just a credit to the script, where you just go, oh gee, because you kind of hope they're going to end up together in a kind of friendship way and co-parent or something. I feel like that when I watched the film, and when I read it, you kind of hope that it's going to work out, you know, and it doesn't really. It's like, you know, and it maybe can't, and it just becomes this sort of minor key kind of we're doing the best we can here, you know, but Milo does what she says she finally does, you know, she does what she says she would do, you know, she has this kid and she signs the papers and but I think don't you get the sense though that there's a chance that it could work out, like that, you know, that eventually she'll be.
I definitely never like wrote that out as a possibility in my mind. I think in my mind, like maybe 10 years down the road, she can like go over for Thanksgiving, or, you know, there's some kind of relationship like that. But it's more that it's important that that not come from her pushing. Like, she's got to be the one to completely back off, and then have
be invited
her and be invited in, which is like really not how she's operated to date.
I see.
Yeah, she has a lot of work to do in terms of figuring out her emotional needs and how and who meets, how they're met and who meets them, and that it's not all on her terms.
Morgan, you mentioned earlier you did a little bit of research, but I'm just kind of curious, did all three of you do a little bit of research into surrogates and just the emotional work that goes into surrogates and in carrying someone's baby and then giving it up?
I didn't.
I felt it was important that I not do the research. I feel like to play Milo wouldn't have done the research, and it felt
right.
It felt really important that I let the experience, you know, act on me rather than me go in kind of through the academic route.
Yeah. I totally agree, because the whole point is that she has done no thinking about the emotional ramifications of this decision, or else who would do that? Like, at least in the way that she goes about it, without any protection, any financial compensation,
right?
Et cetera, et cetera. And that, like, her need to be needed by another person is so overwhelms any part of it that's really even about the pregnancy. Like, all of it is framed as like her involvement with Roger.
And I agree. I think I just trusted that if my instincts were wrong, Morgan would say something. You know? And so I like kind of going into things, unless it's like, you know, some crazy period piece that requires a lot of research. I just go at it instinctively and go, well, I would like a kid. That would be kind of interesting. And I certainly understand why someone who has failed a few times would be excited by this opportunity, etc.
Morgan, can you talk about this ensemble, because this is a tremendous ensemble in this film?
The ensemble, the cast is just so fantastic, honestly. Like I said, representation and diversity in casting is really important to me, but I never want to feel like people are being tokenized or shoehorned into because you're like, you need to have like one of everyone represented. And truly, like Molly, the ensemble of Molly and Ade, Molly and Ade felt natural, but I more mean Molly and George and Noor. Like they felt like people who would be friends in real life. Like I could believe that they went to high school together and gravitated towards each other. They share a sense of humor. They share like a shorthand. And I mean, I got so lucky with the talent of the people who were cast, because they also never, I mean, no one screen tested together. Like that was all just, we luckily had 2 days of rehearsal before we filmed, which was amazing, but none of those people knew each other. And George is probably the closest character to being based on a person in life. He's very much based on one of my best friends, Mo. And especially given that Milo is ostensibly straight, as far as we know in the film, I really, really didn't want to have this like gay best friend who's just like two-dimensional and doesn't have anything going on in his own life and like never pushes back. And, you know, so it was really important to me to develop that character, especially since he's kind of, the way I imagine it, like Noor was maybe the one who was more there for Milo in high school. And now as adults, Noor has settled into her life with her wife, and George, because he lives with Milo, has taken on that emotional role. And it was very important to me that that relationship feel honest and be fleshed out between the two of them.
This is not public information yet, but I wanted to be the first to tell you that our jurors came back yesterday, and the Ensemble of Milkwater tied for best ensemble.
Oh, that's so exciting!
Yay!
Thank you so much. That's wonderful.
Who's our competition?
I can't tell you that. I mean, you're a co-winner with someone else, but you're in
All right, okay.
Thank you so much. That's fantastic.
Yay!
Amazing.
as we talked about this a little bit earlier, but you know, as the film winds up, I found myself, you know, thinking, like, where will these people be in 5 years and 10 years? And I would like to think that, you know, there's a possibility that they can have a relationship and it can be sort of back to normal. Is that, did you sort of see that too as well, that there could be matching up of this?
I mean, I feel like what at least George and Noor just needed from Milo is for her to do a little bit of growing and learning, which I think she's like very much on the path to doing at the end of it. And like, I think they truly, even though her biggest fear, I think, is that she is not loved unconditionally by anyone. I think they really do love her unconditionally, but I mean, loving someone unconditionally doesn't mean that boundaries can't exist and you can't go through periods of distance. But so I think they will always be there for her, especially if she takes the initiative to grow. I never really saw, Ade did a wonderful job as well, as Cameron. He really was fantastic. I never saw like Milo and Ade like being each other's great loves. I think that the larger point there was that he's a good guy and they do have chemistry, and she's so blinded by her need for Roger's affection that she can't even have a good relationship with a good person. But to me, the point of that was never that like she was supposed to realize that Cameron was like her ultimate one true love. And I do think there's hope for her and Roger in terms of having some kind of relationship with baby Eddie. Like, I think it's just that, I mean, as Roger says so many times, like he just needs a second to figure out what kind of parent he's going to be on his own. And then like he can, you know, loosen the reins a little bit, but she won't even pump the brakes to let him do that. So I would hope that once he had gotten a chance to establish himself as a father and in this new relationship, that we could maybe find some beautiful gray area there. Is that what you guys felt?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a boy, right? I can't even
No, it's a
remember.
girl.
No,
girl?
she's
It's
a
a girl?
girl.
Yeah,
She's
so I
very
think,
androgynous. She's in a snowsuit.
yeah, we don't know. And it was played by a boy, though.
Yes, it was played by a boy. Finn
And
Lang, who's
I-
probably like 3.5
oh,
now.
I know. And so,
Crazy.
yeah, I thought they'll come by, you know, she needs some girls in her life, you know? And I think it would be like, if, yeah, that was, you know, I'm an optimist that way, and I'm kind of romantic, and I go, oh yeah, I see them forming a beautiful blended family eventually.
Morgan, can you talk about why it's so important to you to continue to tell these kind of stories with such three-dimensional LGBTQ characters?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that we've seen, and they're so important, but so many queer stories that are like about the coming out and about the first moment of like pain and trauma. And then you go on to live a whole life as a queer person that involves so many other things, you know, like normal friendships and loves and children and relationships. And certainly all of them operate under the umbrella of being queer, but like, you know, every friend I have isn't like my friend and we're queer and that's our, like, you know, the governing principle of our relationship. And I think that seeing just the different lives that queer people lead is really, really important, and not centering everything around these like hallmark queer experiences necessarily is really, it's really important to me. And I think from behind the camera, like our team was entirely department helmed by women, and it's very important to me to work with women behind the camera and queer people behind the camera. I've AD'd a lot, and like the amount of kind of boys club sets I've been on is really troubling. And I think that a big reason why we created A Beautiful Thing is because the people working on it really loved working together and felt free and open to try things and to fail and to suggest an idea that might be amazing and might not work. And creating those environments is like just as important to me as working with amazing queer actors and telling queer stories.
Great. The film is still pretty early in its festival run, correct?
We don't know. I'd say it's probably in the middle of its festival run right now. As soon as we're in talks with the distributor right now, and when you sign for distribution, it totally affects the next festival, the next part of the festival run. But yeah, this is definitely, I'd say, like mid to early in the festival run.
Oh, congratulations to all of you. So what's next for all three of you?
I'm slated to direct a movie next year, but who knows what's happening with anything, that I did not write, but it's about a young gay man who ends up dating a gay couple, and how they kind of navigate that. It's called Throuple, and it's about that navigation, and it's a really fun.
That's a good title.
Script. Yeah, but so much of it is set in the music scene in New York, so, and it's a really important part of the movie, so it's not like COVID work aroundable necessarily. So hopefully we'll be shooting that next summer, and then just doing some writing in the meantime.
Molly?
I go back to shooting Younger in about a week. We'll see. It's, you know, under the new world order, what with COVID. I was shooting a really, really wonderful movie for Amazon with Regina Hall, and that was really great. It's called Master. It's about, you know, race. I play a kind of white girlfriend to Regina, who thinks she knows more about Black culture than Black people. But basically everything's on hold. So we're supposed to shoot Younger. Hopefully we will, but if not, we'll just see.
And I'm in a really excellent writers group, and I've been writing since March with these folks, and several of us have completed full-length projects. And I finished a play about alien abduction and gender, and it is really, I'm so happy with it. And now I'm on a third play that I'm working on, and so I'm writing and watching ER. That's about it.
Patrick!
Patrick in a play right before COVID.
as those of you who are in the industry, I mean, how uncertain are these times where you kind of want to get back to work, you're not really sure if it's safe and sort of wait. What is that uncertainty like right now?
It's dreadful.
You-
Sorry,
you
it's
answer,
dreadful.
yeah.
The theater, because I work in the theater, I was doing a play March 13th that they told us to go home at Manhattan Theater Club, the Perplexed Richard Greenberg's play.
Okay.
And my friends in the off-Broadway theater community are all, directors and theater owners, things like that, are saying September of next year.
Yeah.
Before they can begin again, unless there's a vaccine or something crazy happens where people feel comfortable being that close in a 500-seat house or a 200-seat house. But it looks like it could be a year away from legitimate theater. So it's horrible.
Yep. I mean, I think I'm just like, I mean, the kind of byproduct of having all of the Black Lives Matter protests in the middle of this is that I feel like it was actually like a really wonderful gestalt shift from like feeling sorry for myself about like not being able to make art right now. Not that those two things can't exist side by side, but like it's thrown into stark contrast the things that are really important right now in terms of social justice, and also in terms of I think being like profoundly grateful for the health of people in our lives. So it's still very sad to not have to feel like this is like, these are wasted years potentially in terms of like art and productivity. And I definitely feel that deeply. Like I've certainly mourned the fact that we didn't get to have an in-person festival run for this movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, as trite as it sounds, I do think I've tried to focus on the like gifts that have become more apparent in the meantime of the things that I do have.
Right. I think that's all I had. Thank you all very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much. This has been great.
The great logo.
Oh, great. Thanks so much. I wish you
Yeah.
this year.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Yes,
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Stay safe.
Yes, everyone stay safe. And now we have to stay and smile.